to know how the prince had escaped, and said, "My dear son, I do indeed rejoice to have you safely back, but I cannot imagine why the beautiful carriage and the splendid robes I sent did not please you, why you had them destroyed." "Indeed, sire," said the prince, "I was myself much annoyed at their destruction, but my servant had begged to direct everything on the journey, and I had promised him that he should do so. He declared that we could not possibly get home safely unless I did as he told me." The old king fell into a tremendous rage. He called his council together and condemned the servant to death. The gallows was put up in the square in front of the palace. The servant was led out and his sentence read to him. The rope was being placed around his neck when he begged to be allowed a few last words. "On our journey home," he said, "we spent the first night at an inn. I did not sleep, but kept watch all night." And then he went on to tell what the crows had said, and as he spoke, he turned to stone up to his knees. The prince called to him to say no more, as he had indeed proved his innocence. But the servant paid no heed to him, and by the time his story was done, he had turned to stone from head to foot. Oh, how grieved the prince was to lose his faithful servant, and what pained him most was the thought that he was lost through his very faithfulness, and he determined to travel all over the world and never rest till he found some means of restoring him to life. Now there lived at court an old woman who had been the prince's nurse. To her he confided all his plans, and left his wife the princess in her care. "You have a long way before you, my son," said the old woman. "You must never return till you have met with Lucky Luck. If he cannot help you, no one on earth can." So the prince set off to try to find Lucky Luck. He walked and walked till he got beyond his own country, and he wandered through a wood for 3 days, but did not meet a living being in it. At the end of the 3rd day he came to a river near which stood a large mill. Here he spent the night. When he was leaving next morning, the miller asked him, "My gracious lord, where are you going all alone?" And the prince told him. "Then I beg your highness to ask Lucky Luck this question. Why is it that though I have an excellent mill, with all its machinery complete, and get plenty of grain to grind, I am so poor that I hardly know how to live from one day to another?" The prince promised to inquire and went on his way. He wandered about 3 days more, and at the end of the 3rd day saw a little town. It was quite late when he reached it, but he could discover no light anywhere, and he walked almost right through it without finding a house where he could turn in. But far away at the end of the town he saw a light in a window. He went straight to it, and in the house were 3 girls playing a game together. The prince asked for a night's lodging, and they took him in, gave him some supper, and got a room ready for him where he slept. Next morning, when he was leaving, they asked where he was going, and he told them his story. "Gracious prince," said the maidens, "do ask Lucky Luck how it happens that here we are over 30 years old, and no lover has come to woo us, though we are good, pretty, and very industrious." The prince promised to inquire and went on his way. Then he came to a great forest, and wandered about in it from morning to night and from night to morning before he got near the other end. Here he found a pretty stream which was different from other streams, as, instead of flowing, it stood still and began to talk. "Sir, Prince, tell me what brings you into these wilds. I must have been flowing here 100 years and more, and no one has ever yet come by." "I will tell you," answered the prince, "if you will divide yourself so that I may walk through." The stream parted at once, and the prince walked through without wetting his feet, and directly he got to the other side and told his story as he had promised. "Oh, do ask Lucky Luck," cried the brook. "Why, though I am such a clear, bright, rapid stream, I never have a fish or any other living creature in my waters." The prince said he would do so, and continued his journey. When he got quite clear of the forest, he walked on through a lovely valley till he reached a little house thatched with rushes, and he went in to rest, for he was very tired. Everything in the house was beautifully clean and tidy, and a cheerful, honest-looking old woman was sitting by the fire. "Good morning, mother," said the prince. "May luck be with you, my son. What brings you into these parts?" "I am looking for Lucky Luck," replied the prince. "Then you have come to the right place, my son, for I am his mother. He is not at home just now. He is out digging in the vineyard. Do you go too. Here are 2 spades. When you find him, begin to dig, but don't speak a word to him. It is now 11 o'clock. When he sits down to eat his dinner, sit beside him and eat with him. After dinner he will question you, and then tell him all your troubles freely. He will answer whatever you may ask." With that, she showed him the way, and the prince went and did just as she had told him. After dinner, they laid down to rest. All of a sudden, Lucky Luck began to speak and said, "Tell me, what sort of a man are you? For since you came here, you have not spoken a word." "I am not dumb," replied the young man, "but I am that unhappy prince whose faithful servant has been turned to stone, and I want to know how to help him." "And you do well, for he deserves everything. Go back, and when you get home, your wife will have just had a little boy. Take 3 drops of blood from the child's little finger, rub them on your servant's wrists with a blade of grass, and he will return to life." "I have another thing to ask," said the prince, when he had thanked him. "In the forest near here is a fine stream, but not a fish or other living creature in it. Why is this?" "Because no one has ever been drowned in the stream. But take care in crossing to get as near the other side as you can before you say so, or you may be the first victim yourself. Another question, please, before I go. On my way here, I lodged one night in the house of 3 maidens. All were well-mannered, hard-working, and pretty, and yet none has had a wooer. Why was this?" "Because they always throw out their sweepings in the face of the sun." "And why is it that a miller who has a large mill with all the best machinery and gets plenty of corn to grind is so poor that he can hardly live from day to day?" "Because the miller keeps everything for himself and does not give to those who need it." The prince wrote down the answers to his questions, took a friendly leave of Lucky Luck, and set off for home. When he reached the stream, it asked if he brought it any good news. "When I get across, I will tell you," said he. So the stream parted. He walked through and on to the highest part of the bank. He stopped and shouted out, "Listen, O stream, Lucky Luck says you will never have any living creature in your waters until someone is drowned in you." The words were hardly out of his mouth when the stream swelled and overflowed till it reached the rock up which he had climbed, and dashed so far up it that the spray flew over him. But he clung on tight, and after failing to reach him 3 times, the stream returned to its proper course. Then the prince climbed down, dried himself in the sun, and set out on his march home. He spent the night once more at the mill, and gave the miller his answer, and by he told the 3 sisters not to throw out all their sweepings in the face of the sun. The prince had hardly arrived at home when some thieves tried to ford the stream with a fine horse they had stolen. When they were halfway across, the stream rose so suddenly that it swept them all away. From that time it became the best fishing stream in the countryside. The miller, too, began to give alms and became a very good man, and in time grew so rich that he hardly knew how much he had. And the 3 sisters, now that they no longer insulted the sun, had each a wooer within a week. When the prince got home, he found that his wife had just got a fine little boy. He did not lose a moment in pricking the baby's finger till the blood ran, and he brushed it on the wrists of the stone figure, which shuddered all over, and split with a loud noise in 7 parts, and there was the faithful servant, alive and well. When the old king saw this, he foamed with rage, stared wildly about, flung himself on the ground, and died. The servant stayed on with his royal master and served him faithfully all the rest of his life. And if neither of them is dead, he is serving him still. The end.